Everybody. Welcome to the Apple iOS session, last session of the day. Thank you so much for all your patience. This is iOS accessibility. My name is Josh Pearson. I am the departmental assistant / accessibility consultant at UMass Amherst. I work in the Assistive Technology Center, and I do a lot of different things, a lot of product testing and training, and work very heavily with iOS in a lot of different aspects. And with me co-presenting.
My name is Keith Mountain. I'm the systems engineer. My normal job is a higher education consultant for the states of Illinois and Wisconsin. I'm also on the accessibility advocates team. So I've specialized in accessibility, all things Apple, Apple Watch, iPad, phone. So the topic that we're covering today. And thanks for letting me come to the Boston area. It's been a good couple days.
Jump to slide 3.
Okay, and I'm Bill Leahy. I'm a web designer at UMass Amherst. I'm also in charge of making sure that all the new sites that are launched on UMass IT are accessible. So I go through kind of a slew of testing, and I do all my testing on my iMac.
So accessibility, what for? Well, accessibility is essential to ensuring that people of all abilities are able to access their work, access their school curriculum, and iOS really has opened up that gateway for many, many people. We do have a video that we'd like to show, and Keith, if you want to talk a little bit about Sadie.
You bet. So up on our website, we have examples of just awesome stories. 2 of those stories are Sadie and Christopher. Being from the Midwest, Sadie's from North Dakota. We all know each other, right? Small community. But I worked with Sadie's middle school teacher back in the day and have watched her grow up. She just received her degree in film from Full Sail in Florida. And it's just an incredible story. She's a wheelchair user. She uses switch control, and she's a professional videographer now, all with switches. So it's a great story. And with that, this is something we didn't really test this morning, like for audio.
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't. So we'll test it now for you
Yeah.
all. So if you want to just click on the Sadie video.
Yep.
And if you need audio, maybe. I'm assuming this is going to be required.
Give it a shot.
People think that having a disability is a barrier. But that's not the way I see it. You can catch up with friends.
Ready?
You can capture a moment with your family.
One face, small face, focus lock.
And you can start the day bright and early. You can take a trip to somewhere new. You can concentrate on every word of a story.
A bird began to sing. Jack opened his eyes.
You can take the long way home. Or edit a film like this one. When technology is designed for everyone, it lets anyone do what they love, including me.
This morning, Luis mentioned his friend who helped him consult.
My desk is on the 7th floor if you need anything.
On a class. That was Sadie that he worked with. we're not going to play that one.
Okay.
One of the resources that we have up on the session resources besides the PowerPoint is it's a whole list of resources, including links to these two videos. At Apple, we have a wide product line, and what you're seeing here is our whole family: the Macs, the Apple TVs, the Apple Watches. My point with this slide is we design accessibility from the ground up. We have it in mind when we're building new products, and we want to have consistency across the board. So when you and the people you're working with are learning voiceover, or you're learning different techniques, it's almost all very transferable. The nomenclature is similar. The gestures are similar between platforms. So what happens is the learning curve is a lot shorter because of the consistency.
So when you are looking at accessibility, abilities affect digital access. And Apple really concentrates on the 4 areas of disability and has built in supports for the 4 types of disabilities. So we deal with digital, with disabilities in the visual, auditory, ambulatory, and cognitive categories. And also speech is a huge component of that. And Apple has designed accessibility features that really aid people with all of those types of differing abilities in those 4 categories. Next slide. So to turn on your accessibility features, this is one of the most important parts of this presentation, because if you don't know where these things are, you won't know how to get to them. So turning on your accessibility features, you're going to go to settings. You can all follow along in this, at least to get you to the general part right now while we're setting this up. In your iPads, if you go into settings and then general and then accessibility, you can set up and configure your features there. And then you can quickly turn features on or off with the following methods. So you're able to ask Siri. You can say something like, "Hey Siri, turn on voiceover." You can also do that if you're holding down your Siri button on your iPad. You can also use accessibility features with Siri. And you can use accessibility shortcuts. So a great shortcut is the use of the home button. There are multiple configurations. You can set this home button up in a variety of ways to either turn on voiceover, to turn on Zoom, to turn on other accessibility features. And a wonderful trick that not a lot of people know, you can set up your iOS device to use that home button. So if you triple click that home button, it would turn on a number of accessibility features, and you can cycle through those. So it's not, you can set it to turn on either voiceover, Zoom, or present you with a list of features and go from there. Your computer also has accessibility features built into it, and you are able to enable a lot of those features on your Mac as well.
So I think what we'd like to do now, this is where the hands-on portion starts. Lars and Cheryl are my colleagues from Apple in the back, so if you fall off the rails, just holler and we'll make sure you're going okay. I'm gonna move the cable here for a second.
Do you want the audio?
Nope.
Okay.
So the accessibilities area in the system preferences. Is this a familiar space for all of you? Can I make that assumption or no? Don't make that assumption? Okay, so move around here a little bit. Video. I'm not waiting long enough, am I?
Nope.
HDMI, phone, S video.
There you go.
All right. Ready? Yeah. Okay. So somewhere on your device is your settings that looks like the gear. Go ahead and launch settings.
Inside settings, you're going to find general. So you enter into the general section, and under general is the accessibility tab. And that is where all of these wonderful features live.
Everybody find that okay? Okay. And what you'll see here is we have it broken down into sections. And this happens to be the order that we're going to cover them today. So up on the top is vision. Down below that, we have interaction, we have hearing, media, learning, and the last one is accessibility shortcuts. So one of the things I want to leave you with when we're done here is to fine-tune your device to have the right settings set for shortcuts. So, for me, if I don't have my glasses, I'll use Zoom all the time. Zoom in, zoom out, and just to very seamlessly get in and out of that mode, it's super beneficial. So those types of things. The analogy that I like is when you get in a rental car, you sit down and you got to figure things. It's similar, but I need to customize it for my use. Get the mirrors adjusted, get the steering wheel at the right distance, and those sort of things. So that's the same thing that we're doing here with the accessibility settings.
So the first set of accessibility settings that I'm going to demonstrate for you are the visual accessibility settings.
I'm going to plug into
Yeah.
Got it. And then audio?
Yeah.
And this corner.
Perfect.
Settings.
So the voice that you're hearing right now
Lively letters.
is VoiceOver. Now, we had a
Double tap to open.
wonderful demonstration of VoiceOver this morning from our keynote speaker, Luis Perez. But I'll go a little bit more in depth. So VoiceOver is the built-in screen reader here in iOS. And there are a number of different things that you can do with VoiceOver. You're able to cycle through VoiceOver either by dragging your finger around the screen.
Safari. Click Touch Chat HD. Double tap to open. Sound literacy. Double tap to clicker connect.
Or you can flick
Double
from
tap to open.
left to right, from item to item. VoiceOver also has built-in gestures which allow you to get into a little bit more complex features of the screen. So for instance, if you're trying to cycle through a list of links on a Safari page, you can get into what's called the rotor. The rotor you would access almost like you're turning a key in a lock. You'd put two fingers on the screen.
Characters. Words. Speaking rate. Containers. Headings.
So if I wanted to jump back and forth through a list of headings on a Safari page or a Chrome page, I would be able to then swipe up and down with a finger and move from heading to heading, link to link, text field to text field, so on and so forth. So you can really get into the nuts and bolts of how a page is configured using VoiceOver. Provided that your apps have been designed accessibly, VoiceOver is going to read all of the items on that screen. And then to turn VoiceOver off, you would just hold down your Siri button, turn off VoiceOver.
Okay, I turned off VoiceOver.
And so that is how you would get in and out of VoiceOver. Do you want to
Sure.
hop in and do Zoom?
Yep.
No? Yep.
All right. So the next exercise we're going to go through is turning on Zoom, and then we're going to turn on some shortcuts, and we'll keep building up from there. So the second one down is the Zoom option. Everybody find that okay? There is a on-off switch up on the top. And there's two different modes. One is a magnifying glass that you can scan across the screen. The other is the full screen controller. I'm gonna grab my pointer here in a second. So under the zoom region where it says zoom window, if you change that to full screen, we have the full screen zoom. And the other thing that you're seeing on my iPad is I have inverse color turned on, which also is a great way to highlight color and show the contrast. All right. I'm going to turn that off just for a second. The zoom filter is the one that changes the color. See that? Okay. And then the last option is the magnification level. And you can adjust that on the fly, up or down. I'm sure. Sure. Okay. Everybody have mastery of Zoom? Okay. Let's click on that accessibility button there and just back out one area. And let's turn on the magnifier. I am curious, how many of you are using the magnifier on your phone or your iPad already? It's one of my favorites. Okay. Good answer. I use it all the time, probably a couple times a month at least. So go ahead and turn on the magnifier. Everybody find that okay? Okay. Now let's scroll all the way down to the bottom of the screen to accessibility shortcuts. And here's where you can customize the device to meet your individual requirements. And here's where a lot of like libraries that are circulating iOS devices, they'll just have them all turned on so the user can grab it and then just easily customize it to whatever features they need. So far we have, we can enable Zoom, VoiceOver is there, Smart Invert is a great feature. Like if you're reading in a plane or reading in bed, I'll just turn on Smart Invert to make it less intense and less bright. Everybody good? Front table, you guys find that okay? Okay, all right. Let's hit the home button. And now we're going to activate the shortcuts. So in order to pull up the shortcut menu, it's a triple click. So the pace is click, click, click. Click, click, click. That'll pull up the accessibility shortcuts. I'll wait till everybody successfully gets set up. Cheryl, you're monitoring back there? Everybody's doing good? And then turn on magnifier when you're ready. What magnifier does, it activates your camera. It takes a temporary picture of whatever it is you're pointing at. It uses, it's like a sharpness filter. So if you're a little bit jiggling when you're taking the picture, it'll focus it a little bit better. We can zoom way in or out with magnifier. And the other thing that we can do, if you look up on the screen here, you got the kind of the filter area, those three little circles. You can apply different filters to the text and make the information, in many ways pop a little bit differently than it was before. So if you're ever asked to pull the serial number from any of your Apple devices, this magnifier tool is a requirement.
Yes.
Super handy. Okay. Everybody get that? Okay. And you can just triple click and or close out of it when you're done. I read under iOS 12, which comes out this fall, we're going to make that magnifier tool a little bit easier to get to. It's kind of hidden right now. And so you have that to look forward to. All right.
Speak screen.
Sure.
So iOS also enables you to speak the screen of and read text. So you can rely on iOS's screen reader without needing to know voiceover commands. That means if you need something read to you, like a web page or articles or something like that, you're able to just tell iOS, speak the screen, or you can also use a keyboard, a gesture that will enable that. So for me to navigate back to email, I have to navigate to voiceover. So turn on voiceover.
Okay, I turned on voiceover.
List. Suggestions. At zip dot setting. Mail. 240. Mail. Dismiss. Unread. 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 England. Unread. Unread. England. Keith Mountain. Hello, my name is Keith. Unread. Keith Mountain. Select. Hello. Привет.
You're going to remember my name now in 10 different languages.
So if you are at the top of the screen, all you need to do is swipe up with 2 fingers, and then that will navigate you
Today
to
at
the top of the screen.
8:53 a.m.
If you swipe down with 2 fingers, that will read the entire contents of the screen. You can also tell it to speak screen. Speak screen.
Hello, my name is Keith. To Joshua Pearson. Hello, my name is Keith. Today at 8:53 a.m. Hello, my name is Keith.
สวัสดีค่ะฉันชื่อคีทอ
Name ist Kite.
مرحبا اسمي كيث
你好，我的名字是基斯。
Привет, меня зовут Кит.
Hallo mijn naam is Kent
こんにちは、私の名前はキースです。Hello, मेरा नाम कीथ है।
لو مرة نامت
Hej, jag heter Keith. Thank you, Keith. Keith Mountain, Systems Engineer, Apple, Mountain.
To pause it, you just double tap, and that will pause the audio. So as you can see, iOS has built-in text-to-speech for a number of languages. And then it also is smart enough where it's able to handle some very, very complex language and linguistic types of things. So I'm going to pull up an example of that.
Previous message.
It's also smart enough to detect the language on the fly and change it as it's reading.
Yep.
Which is pretty cool.
Which will happen. Sometimes I'll get into a website, and that website has been, for some reason, coded in French, and VoiceOver automatically translates to French. It's,
Previous message. Next message. Inbox. Next mark. Move. Delete. Their bathroom. There will guest wireless. Today at 9:07 a.m. Inbox. To Keith Mountain. Unread. Keith Mountain. Select phrases. Phrases. The bandage was wound around the wound. The farm was used to produce. The dump was so full that it had to refuse more. Are you happy?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are different voices that you can choose when you are working through text-to-speech on your iOS device. You're not limited to this one device. The voice that is a favorite of a lot of people is a voice called Alex. That was the voice that Luis demonstrated this morning. And Keith told me an interesting fact. He said that Alex has, you said 147?
147 different breaths.
So Alex will breathe naturally like a human. It will take pauses while it is speaking and breathe 147 different ways.
There's a sad breath. There's a happy breath. There's the breath at the end of a sentence or end of a question. Do we want to change it?
Yeah, sure. Let's see.
Alert. Access magnify. Hearing device. Smart and hear accessibility. Access map. Select zoom. Selected. Voiceover off.
You want to jump in there just quicker? Yeah.
So Alex is the voice that we have spent the most engineering effort on. It's the most sophisticated. It's a little bit larger, but to me, it's usually worth that extra download time. So in accessibility, under speech, the sixth one down, I have the option to change the voice. Under voice, I'm going to go to English. I'm going to change it from Samantha to Alex. Alex isn't downloaded by default, so if it's not on, it's probably not worth the 10 minutes to download it right now. But that's where we need to go to get that option. I might switch over to my iPad.
Yeah, sure.
So that.
Yeah.
While we're here under speech, I suggest that you turn on speak selection, speak screen. I'm also a big fan of highlight content. So as your email is being read to you, it's going to highlight the sentence that's being read, and then it will call out the actual word that's being said, kind of like following the bouncing ball for karaoke. The last thing on this page is pronunciation. The city that I stayed in last night apparently is not said the way that I was saying it, which is what? Sure. Yeah, and I was saying, whatever. Yeah. They didn't know what I was talking about. It was so off. Yeah. So under pronunciation, you can add your own vocabulary, maybe your last name or your city name. Add it, say it phonetically, and then when it does text to speech, it's going to say it right.
Where that does wonders in education is when you have a student who has some reading from the 16th century that has these crazy names that, you know, nobody knows how to pronounce anymore except for people that speak Latin. And you can customize that pronunciation.
I'm just going to switch to my iPad here real quick. And two-finger swipe from the top turns on the screen reader.
Phrases. The bandage was wound around the wound. The farm was used to produce produce. The dump was so full that it had to refuse more refuse. We must polish the Polish furniture. He could leave if it would get the lead out. The soldier decided to desert his desert in the desert. Since there is no time like the present, he thought it was time to present the present. I did not object to the object. Dr. Love lives on Love Drive. 167 quintillion, 123 quadrillion, 768 trillion, 987 billion, 987 million, 890,000, $890.56. St. Mary Street. Are you happy? Are you happy? I am happy. Smiling face with squinting eyes, thumbs up with light skin tone. Hostisford.
That's a city by me that everybody, that it always says wrong. This morning, Luis mentioned emojis and how texting with emojis kind of gets in the way. Well, you know, smiley face, thumbs up with white skin. I mean, that's the kind of detail that you're going to get.
So the disconnect between what he said this morning and what we're showing you is Apple's got it figured out. Apple is king of the emoji game at this point. You know, VoiceOver reads emojis wonderfully. There are some, y'all have got some great emojis. There's where you wind up getting into accessibility barriers with that is when you start to use emojis on other platforms. So like the Facebook Messenger or, you know, other places that are starting to incorporate emojis. They haven't designed accessibility from the ground up. And so screen reader use is not baked into their emoji pie, if you will. So stick with Apple if you're going to use emojis. Few last things to mention while we're covering the visual components of Apple's accessibility. A wonderful thing that Apple has added, which will be coming down the pike in terms of compliance and having the same importance as closed captioning is audio description. How many of y'all are familiar with audio description? Yeah? Yeah, okay. So audio description, there is a feature within the accessibility settings, within the visual settings, you are able to turn on audio description. iTunes has movies which incorporate audio description. And so if you have that setting turned on, anytime you purchase a movie from iTunes that has, purchase or rent a movie that has audio description, that will automatically be turned on by default.
We even label content that is audio described that way. So you can just do a search on audio descriptions, and that's part of the metadata that's there.
A lot of people nowadays tell me, when I tell them about audio description, I wind up bumping into people later on and they say, well, I'm using it like an audiobook. You know, they'll buy a movie and throw that on the car stereo while they're driving or commuting or whatever, and not have to think, you know, and not have to worry about the visuals because it's all narrated to them. So there you go, pastime that way. Next slide.
So let's do
The QR.
the QR.
Yeah, yeah. So we have a QR code here.
Last slide.
Yep.
All right. That is in the media section.
Yep.
Audio descriptions on or off. Same area that you turn on closed captions on or off, and you can customize it a little bit there. I'm going to combine a couple exercises in this next one. One is QR code support is now built into our camera. So up on the screen, you are going to see a QR code. It better let someone else drive that button there. So locate the camera app on your device and point it up at the screen. Sometimes you need to focus or zoom in a little bit just to make it come up. And that will take you to a recent CNET article. So you get a little pop-up at the top. You want to go to Safari, and that will take you to that URL. So as an instructor, I find it's a handy way to be pretty nimble and go to different places at kind of on the fly.
Safari also has features built in that, while we're on the topic of finishing up with the visual components, Safari has a reader built in that will eliminate most advertisements and superfluous junk from web pages, so you can only concentrate on the information you need to know. And then Apple has also introduced Braille input. So right now I'm accessing the slides on a Braille display, which is similar to the one, if you guys were in the Microsoft session, Matt showed his Braille display. I'll hold it up so that you can all see it. This is a Braille machine, which I am getting my slide content Bluetoothed in on, so I'm able to read that. Apple has also introduced Braille screen input. So this is, you know, when I'm texting or I'm emailing and people get funny little errors that don't look like English and seem really weird, it's a Braille errors because I'm typing on the screen of my iOS device in Braille. And that is customizable in your keyboard settings.
So everybody get to this page. So to me, it looks like a bunch of clutter. You know, somewhere in that mess of advertisements is a really good article, but how do we get there? Okay, the answer is this button right here that activates Safari Reader. Those four little lines up there, Safari Reader. And with that, it strips out it just pulls out the body of the article. We can also adjust the font at this point, make it bigger or smaller. Online material and a lot of courses that I've taken over the past, I'm referred to some web article. I want to store it for offline use. I'll use a Safari Reader, pull it up as a PDF, and then use that as what's saved locally. It's a much cleaner way and tighter way of doing that. The other thing that works here would be the screen reader. So if we were to highlight some text, now that we've turned it on, we're going to have the option to speak it.
Ahead of Global Accessibility Awareness Day, the tech giant discusses its work helping people with disabilities.
Important emails. Luis mentioned when his eyes get tired, he turns on the screen reader. And if you're reading a book, it'll actually keep turning the pages until you tell it to stop. Pretty cool. Anybody have any questions on that? Everybody get it to work? The one thing that I run into a lot is not every website supports the Safari Reader. You normally need to be inside of a document, and then the HTML, it'll figure it out. So if you go to CNN's main page, it's not there. Go to an article, it'll be there. Any questions? All right.
So I hear some people trying to use VoiceOver. Are we doing okay? Are we stuck? Everybody, you're stuck? You want to turn it off? If you hold down Siri and tell Siri to turn off VoiceOver, she'll do that. Auditory, yeah.
We have 3 minutes.
Back in the accessibility area, one of the features we wanted to highlight is hearing aid compatibility. And what we're doing with iOS with hearing aids is just incredible. Anybody have any experience with that combination? So we have a pair of hearing aids up here. You pair them like you would a Bluetooth device, and that becomes another source for audio. So the phone rings, it goes to your hearing aids. You're listening to music, it goes to your hearing aids. But because of the technology, it's smart enough to know that it'll use noise canceling. You can say I'm in a noisy restaurant, and it'll turn on the appropriate filters to tune that for the environment. Just incredible what it can do. It can be paired to multiple devices. So you have an iPad, a computer, or an iPhone. It'll know which one is producing the audio and send that to your hearing aids. Okay. There's another really awesome feature. It's called Live Listen. And what Live Listen allows you to do is put your phone maybe up here next to the speaker, and then route that audio back to wherever you're sitting in the room, back to your hearing aids. That is a new feature that we're introducing with our AirPod little earbuds, starting with iOS 12. So come the fall, you'll be able to use Live Listen for that feature as well. Pretty exciting. All right, any questions? I'm really glad we've included all of this information on the resource guide, because we're not going to get to a lot of that.
Yeah.
And that's where locating where accessibility is on iOS is our objective today. Now that you know where it is, start experimenting with all the different features. We'd like to think it's intuitive, and what I know is this is all documented in our user guides, and the resource guide has a link to the user guide. So hopefully we'll get you started, and you can go from there.
I think that's all of our time.
Is there like a control F feature, like to find a word?
If you have a Bluetooth keyboard connected and you are using VoiceOver, and maybe you can jump in on this if you know more, you could do I believe it's Command F or Command Control F that will allow you to find text or find a word on a screen or in a book. Outside of VoiceOver, is that available? Do you know?
That's a good question. I do not know that. I'll take that one offline. Okay. One thing I wanted to point out is anywhere that you have a cursor for text input, you can use your voice for inputting. And it also supports multiple languages. So right here is the microphone. If I start recording, hello everybody, new line. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. Exclamation mark. New paragraph. So part of it is just getting the formatting commands down, but for the most part, I'm just talking naturally, and it is getting this, and it's a pretty accurate. Yep. This was not planned, obviously. My speech here wasn't pre-recorded. My wife is a court reporter, so I'm keeping really close eye on this technology just to see how much longer her career is going to be around. They've been telling high school counselors for the last 20 years, don't direct anybody to court reporting because it's going to be eliminated with technology. So what's happened is there are no more court reporters, so we're having to find technology because no one's around to do it. But that is a great example of text-to-speech. There's one other item that I wanted to call out. This was just a piece of paper that was sitting up on our desk here. This is from one of the earlier workshops. This is I think it's a $10 app. It's called Claro Scan Pen Pro. Anybody using it besides Josh? Okay. Instant OCR from a picture. So I've taken the picture. I'm just going to drag my finger diagonally across the item here. Oops.
AV Access Bill ID Planning Worksheet determines stakeholders, what departments need to be involved to ensure accessible classroom AV. What are the names of at least 3 people?
So for $10, I have an instant picture to speech tool available in my pocket.
What's it called?
Claro Scan Pen Pro. I have a link to the App Store app in that resource guide. There's only, I like to focus on things that are built in that are free. There's only like 2 or 3 kind of marquee apps that I'm calling out as things to look at. Yes, that was part of the, it's up on the website for this course, for this section. Thank you for the bonus round. I think we're at 3 after.
Yep.
Oh, we are in the bonus round. This is great. Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Sorry. It's all good. No worries, man.
Okay.
Okay.
We can go back to our regularly scheduled program here. All right.
Let's see.
Keyboards? Yes. In the world of input, I showed you how to use your voice to get text in. Down along the bottom left-hand corner, there's that globe icon. And I've enabled several different languages. So here's where I can change between Spanish, French, and emoji as my language. I've also added a couple custom keyboards. And one that I like is the lowercase keyboard. This is designed, it's a dyslexia-focused keyboard. It has weighted letters. And it's using the Open Dyslexia font. And I've heard really good feedback of having that input make sense. If I click on the globe again, another one is Super Keys. And what Super Keys is a low vision keyboard. So basically, I can zoom in on the different areas of the keyboard and get magnified letters. And I'm accessing all that by clicking on the globe right there. I would like to make sure, did everybody get the speak screen to work? No? Close enough? Is that okay? I don't want to rush through that because that is such a useful. So we're good with that. Okay.
Next slide. And what slide is it?
This is cognitive.
So let's do assistive touch.
Sure.
That makes sense.
Yep. So assistive touch, iOS allows users who are not able to have the ability to touch a touchscreen to be able to utilize the same accessibility features. So we've already seen examples of that in motion when we saw the video of Sadie. Sadie is a Switch user, and she's utilizing technology which allows her to then be able to use something other than her hands to access these features on iOS. iOS also includes a feature called reachability, which it will bring, if you drag down to the bottom of the screen, it will bring apps a little bit closer. So do you have anything you want to
Sure.
jump in? Yeah.
For those of you with iPhone Pluses, the big screen, you're holding it with one hand. How do you get up to the top and do something on the top? That is called a reachability, and that's an option that you can turn on or off, and that's a feature on your phone. So for on my phone here, my mom called while I was talking. If I do a swipe down at the bottom of the screen, you see how the top moved down, and I can reach that while I'm driving or doing something else more important. So that's reachability, and that's a setting that you have in accessibility, and that's you're only going to see that on your phones. While I have my phone attached, there's one other text-to-speech feature that I just love. In settings, under phone, there's the option to announce calls. This one right here. So what it will do, it'll use caller ID, or it will use a name that's in your contact and announce the call before it starts ringing. So Josh, you use it?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So it is just I'm working out, or I've got my earbuds in, and my mom is calling. I'll know that it is my mom that is calling.
You can also control your phone using Siri, which is wonderful. Hey Siri goes a long way, and it's not used primarily for dictation, or you're really able to control most, if not all of your iOS features through Siri, either through use of the home button, or if you're unable to do that, Hey Siri works wonders.
Have you guys spent any time identifying family members with Siri? Have you seen how that works? So the scenario is I need to send out a birthday invitation to my family. I can do that with one command because Siri knows who my family is. How do you tell it who your wife is, who your kids are? Well, you basically tell it. So if I activate Siri by holding down the menu button, Jerry Mountain is my dad. Siri is gonna get wise with me here. Like, okay, but I already know that. Okay. Pat Mountain is my mom.
Okay, but I already know that.
Send a message to my parents that I look forward to seeing. Oops. Send a message to my parents that I look forward to seeing them this weekend.
Ready to send it?
Yes.
I'll send it.
So now I get a message like, what are we doing this weekend? but they're used to that from me by now. So without, I touched it to activate Siri, but for the most part, I'm giving it voice commands to do all that. So my kids, my wife, all those people in my life are identified, and Siri knows about that. It's all done securely, and there's a whole level of privacy and randomization that takes place with that. But that's connected to my account now.
So you have to categorize them all. So if you wanted to say mom and dad and kids as immediate family, cousins are distant family.
I keep trying to find the edge. I haven't found it yet. So it's people who you identify, cousins and aunts and uncles. I haven't gone that far yet. So if I say send it to my kids, I get the 3 kids. I send it to my family, I get everybody. So it's pretty neat how that works.
Siri, Hey Siri is also wonderful in use of home automation and cases of that nature, specifically for people who need to use environmental controls. I'm thinking of people who have specific sensory disabilities where they can only be in a temperature controlled environment, let's say a dorm, and they need an air conditioning unit, that type of thing. There are ways to link those up to Siri and have all of that controlled through voice commands.
That will get extended even further this fall with iOS 12, where we're releasing an app called Shortcuts. So you'll be able to create a whole series of events that are tied to, like, you're starting to drive home, your phone's going to know that you're leaving, and if you say I'm going home or whatever, all the things that need to happen when on your way home, get the dishes done, put the clothes away, turn the air conditioning on or off or whatever needs to happen. All that can be triggered by an automation command through Siri. So pretty exciting stuff there. Siri can also be used for reminders. Siri can also be used for to-do lists. So it's really practical to say, set a reminder for tomorrow to take the trash out.
Okay, I'll remind you.
So in my reminder app now, tomorrow at 9 o'clock, I'm going to get a message about taking the trash out.
I didn't used to rely on reminders at all. I was one of those people who said, a mental checklist is fine with me. And then I saw my colleague Kelsey using reminders all of the time in work. And I went, wow, that looks like it would really it has made my life and my work productivity so much easier. Because anytime we have a meeting or some little to-do list thing that comes up, remind me tomorrow at 3 o'clock to email so-and-so about, WCAG compliance or whatever, it's been a lifesaver. So.
And for our last demonstration, Luis touched on this morning. It's augmented artificial intelligence that's built in. So here is my photo album, almost 22,000 photos. And this just happened to me the other day. My wife said, "What's the license plate number of our one car?" And I'm like, "I have no idea. Like, don't you?" So I typed in automobile, and I found all pictures that had to do with automobile, and then I found one that actually showed the picture. Right? So I think Luis's example this morning was flowers or sunsets. Sunrise, sunset. What's curious, there's 3 more pictures that are identified as a sunrise than sunset, how it knows the difference. But this is the view from my backyard over the farmer's field across the way. Kind of cool. But I didn't put any of that information in there. It knows the difference. And it also knows how to do facial features and expressions. This is my favorite. So there's 2 of my boys, and we're on the train to go to Chicago, and they're cool with their headphones on. I'm like, oh, let me put my headphones on, and I'll be a cool guy too. So I jumped in on the picture. So I'm going to turn on voiceover real quick. Voiceover.
Voiceover on. Photos. Photo. Depth effect. Favored. Landscape. Photo. Depth effect. Favored photo contains Andrew Moenton, Keith Moenton, Peter Moenton, landscape, July 23rd, 2017,
So
16,
it
12.
identified the
Image.
face.
Action, 3 faces, 1 suspicious, 2 smiling, headphones, slightly blurry, right, photo 25 of 32, full width of screen.
So 3 faces, identified who they are, kind of some of the emotion on the face, and of course one of them is suspicious. So that's probably the guy with the gang symbols or whatever that is that he's doing there.
So coupling that with the iPhone, iOS's ability to categorize photos by location.
Accessibility
You know,
selected. Voiceover off.
I've started dabbling in photography as well, and for me, the ability to not only know what photo I'm looking at, but when and where it was taken, it can really help me start to be one of those people that's like, well, do you want to see photos from my vacation to Switzerland? You know, and pull those up and bore everybody. So, you know, but iOS, you know, it's really been a game changer in terms of accessibility. I very, very vividly, sometimes I wake up from nightmares at this. I remember the days when you had to carry, for myself as a blind person, I had to carry a computer on 3 computers on my back, an attaché case on my left-hand side that had 6 book readers in it, another attaché case on my right-hand side that had a color identifier, a label maker, you know, all of these different items. And now we condense those into one device that we can slap down on our side or fit in our pocket or throw in our handbag, and it's amazing. So the tools that you carry with you that you don't even know. And so the last slide here is just our contact information. So that is my contact info, our contact info at the ATC at UMass Amherst. Reach out to us if you have any questions. Then Keith's info is also there. We do have social media in the Assistive Technology Center at UMass. We're basically on everything. We're UMass ATC. There's an underscore in there somewhere. So, you know, dig us up, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And we also have a podcast, Access Abilities. Access Abilities is available on iTunes and other podcasting platforms. We interview many, many different people in and around the assistive tech accessibility industry in a wide variety of capacities. So we encourage you to check that out. And thank you for showing up to this today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.